taking you beyond the documents. The first source we're going to be looking at is a picture from the Farnsworth Photographic Collection taken at the Gila River Relocation Center, which was located on an American Indian reservation in Arizona. The first picture, which shows the barracks, the second picture shows a man with his garden, and the third picture shows two Japanese twins at the camp. The picture I'll be focusing on is a man in front of his garden. This picture was taken in 1942 by a photographer affiliated with the Farnsworth Photo Collection. In 1942, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt ordered the internment of people of Japanese ancestry. This came after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. Many of the Japanese were incarcerated and were American citizens. President Roosevelt thought that Japan would attack the entire West Coast after they attacked Pearl Harbor and wanted to rid the West Coast of Japanese people by moving them into internment camps. This photo was taken to be used as propaganda by the government, who insisted that the Japanese were being humanely treated. This was not the case, however, and the displacement of over 120,000 Japanese Americans was inherently racist. We can use these images in historical research because many of the internment camps are not standing today. Images like these help historians get a better idea of what the camps looked like, and they can fill in that missing gap in history. Some limited challenges of this non-documentary source is that we don't know how that man was actually feeling. Was he proud of his garden? Was he in distress because his whole life was stolen from him? We don't know because those things are left up for interpretation in non-documentary sources. The next source I have is an amateur video, part of the William Pressner Film Collection, filmed by an unknown photographer. There's no sound in the clip, and it was taken on October 31st, 1970 at Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix, Arizona, where anti-war protesters waited for Nixon's plane to land. At this time in history, college students were extremely involved in the protest against U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. The protest escalated, and one day at Kent State University, over 3,000 students gathered. The National Guard met the protesters with rifles and used tear gas and bayonets to push back the protesters. The guards killed 4 students with their rifles and injured many others. This video captures the clear divide between the protesters opposed to the Vietnam War and the American families who supported Nixon. This video can be used in historical research when historians are learning about the anti-war movement, which began in the 1960s. It's one of the first times young people came together and fought for the end of the war. Although these protesters were in the minority, they made their voices heard loud and clear. Some limitations of this video clip is that it has no sound. We can't hear what the protesters are yelling, but we can read their signs. Another challenge we face is that the source is clearly very short and we don't get to clearly see Nixon himself arriving at the airport. The last source I have is a relief map of North America. The author of this relief map is Rand McNally and Company. This map is from 1912 and has no legend or scale. As you can see, many spots are labeled on this relief map. There are several bodies of water labeled, as well as several states and cities. The blue represents the water, the gray represents the land, and the darker shaded gray regions represents hills and valleys. When this map was made in 1912, New Mexico had just been made the 47th state, soon followed by Arizona as the 48th state. Alaska wasn't even a state yet. This map was created as a reference for scientists or historians to look back on. Maps like these are helpful in studying how a region has changed over time due to natural events or the development of an area. This relief map is very simple compared to the current relief map of North America, as you can see in this map. Many areas that weren't labeled in the 1912 version are now detailed and labeled in the 2018 version. Because the original map is lacking a legend or a key, this poses a challenge to historians who are looking for a detailed map of North America. As with all non-documentary sources, there are positive and negatives that historians have to consider when choosing and examining their sources. These non-documentary sources give us a completely different perspective to the events in history that we have read about in a textbook, which is why non-documentary sources are so important. Thank you.